This is the beginning of the United States, but how did we get from here to here? How did we get from sea to shining sea? Well, let me tell you how we got the Oregon Territory. In 1801, President Thomas Jefferson appointed Meriwether Lewis as his private secretary. 2 years later, after the Louisiana Purchase, Lewis was chosen as commander of the expedition to find a way to the Pacific coast by river. In the summer of 1804, Lewis and Clark are assigned a special unit of the United States Army, called the Corps of Discovery. They begin their journey with 59 people and one dog. They traveled through the Missouri River to Fort Mandan, a trading post where they set up camp and took shelter through the winter. However, only 33 people and one dog continued the trip to the Pacific. In the spring of 1805, Lewis, Clark, and other members traveled up to present-day Montana, choosing to follow the Jefferson River. The Corps of Discovery met the Shoshone Indians. Sacagawea became a guide and translator to help the Corps of Discovery travel over the Bitterroot Mountains. Then they create canoes to transport themselves down the mouth of the Columbia, where they wintered from 1805 to 1806 at Fort Clatsop. Lewis and Clark kept a journal of their findings along the way. In September of 1806, the Corps of Discovery returned to St. Louis, where they would present the information they had gathered to Thomas Jefferson.
We set out early and proceeded to the top of the mountain. From this point, I beheld the grandest and most pleasing prospects which my eyes ever surveyed. William Clark, January 8th, 1806.
Along the way, William Clark drew a series of maps that included named rivers, creeks, and spots that were good to camp. The expedition of the Corps of Discovery created a crude route to the shore of the Pacific, marking a pathway for a new nation to spread westward from sea to shining sea, fulfilling what would become to many Americans in achieving the manifest destiny. In the course of the next 2 centuries, the new Americans and immigrants would come across the central and western portions of what would eventually become the 48 United States. In 1819, the Transcontinental Treaty set the southern boundary of Oregon Country as Spain ceded its claims to the territory of the United States. In 1824, America and Russia make a treaty. Russia got the Pacific Northwest coast, and America got peace. By 1841, around 70 pioneers went across the Oregon Trail for fertile land and fur. In 1846, Britain and America had border disputes of sections of the Oregon Country, so the Oregon Treaty was created. Natives are pushed out of their land. As the Oregon Treaty was enacted, Americans and British came flooding in, pushing the natives out.
Well, it was a very devastating time for the Native Americans. Many died and lost their homes, but this was one of the few negative factors that were needed to become this nation that we are today.
In 1869, the railroads came in, so the Oregon Trail had ended. Sadly, about 1 in 10 people who set off on the Oregon Trail did not survive. Asiatic cholera became the disease with the worst reputation, since it would cause intense pain from 12 to 24 hours before death. Great thunderstorms took their toll on the travelers. Half a dozen people were killed by lightning strikes, others by hail. Rain ended up leaking wagons with no place for shelter.
According to my calculation, these disasters had caused 1 in 8 people to die. This is around 62,000 people. This was completely devastating to the American looking for a new life in the West.
This would significantly transform forest and grassland into landscape of cities, farms, and harvested forests. In all, we gained a bigger nation. We got Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Oregon, and Washington.